Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Lots to get into here today, and a lot we continue to doing so. Hope you all had a restful start of the week here with the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. So at least some out there in the community also taking it as the day of service, which is also a very good thing. But a lot to get into today, and even happening as of today, not even just reviewing some of the major things that are going on the weekend. Okay, here's some of the things that we were going to be mentioning before things happening today came about. Of course, we did have another national-ish visit to our region over the weekend. We had the mayor of New York City coming to the area, and some very interesting statements there. Also had the inauguration of Governor Greg Abbott and some of his further statements on what is going to be going on with the legislative session, among other things. But that has been, a lot of things coming up now, including, as someone already mentioned in the comments there, that yes, El Paso's Chief of Police Greg Allen has died. The city has now released a statement. We'll get into that here in just a second. And on, I guess, related legal issues or just other major ones certainly affecting things here in our area, some clarity on what some of the federal charges are going to be for the indicted Walmart shooter here in El Paso from the August 3rd case. And we'll be visiting a little bit later in the program with our news partners there. Not currently news partners anyway, with El Paso Inc., talking about some of their big stories and other things going on here, and a lot of other comments going on there, including, of course, the Major Cowboys game. Not so much we'll be talking about, but I know people are excited about it. Definitely a lot of coverage over on that on our sister station, Fox Sports 1380. But people including Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, James Holmes, Robbie Flores, and more tuning in, chiming in there, also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate. And James Holmes putting out there, FYI, Chief Greg Allen passed away this morning. So sad. Statement out not too long before we got on air here, definitely the last half hour or so, from the mayor. Mayor Oscar Leeser issuing a statement saying, quote, "We lost a great leader today. El Paso Chief of Police Greg Allen was not only an incredible chief of police, but he had an incredible son, husband. He was an incredible son, husband, father, and friend. He earned the respect of every officer on his force, and I was proud to call him my friend. He will be greatly missed, and the city of El Paso will be forever indebted to him for his leadership. Our heart goes out to his wife, Roseanne, and his entire family at this difficult and painful time. He was an esteemed member of our city family, and we will mourn alongside them." Of course, Allen joined the police force in 1978, further noted by our news partners over there at KFOX 14. And Allen was then named chief of police in March 2008. They do have some previous videos with Allen from 2018, one of the last times that he was interviewed here. Further statements from the city, of course, including city manager Tommy Gonzalez saying, quote, "This is a terrible loss for Chief Allen's family, and it is heartbreaking for us. His city family has meant so much to our organization and to our community. We send our deepest condolences to his wife, Roseanne, and his entire family." Again, that city manager Tommy Gonzalez there, as we also have Eric Von Holstein Rathlow and Austin Redfern chiming in over on the social media. So, that kind of blew up a bunch of the stuff we were mentioning here. There's not a whole lot of clarity on the exact cause of death yet. I will say that. I know there are probably going to be a lot of questions coming in on that. Some let's just say colleagues speaking with that have been going to get more in-depth in interviews involving the police department here now maybe wondering, it wasn't totally out of form for there to be a particular request for the chief here. He had an interesting relationship with local reporting and news in general, let's just put it that way. But that comes as a shock to a lot, I will say that. So looking for more details as soon as we can get them on that. But again, coming out within the last, I think technically El Paso Matters broke the news an hour or so ago or two ago on the passing of him. Apparently email sent out to police staff earlier today. And now, of course, the release out by the city of El Paso formally announcing it. So that has, certainly going to have a lot of repercussions, among other things. Just off the top of my head, the search for a new police chief. We haven't had this kind of a search or discussion going on since 2008. So that will be certainly something to look at in the coming days, along with the funeral and other arrangements, but both on the kind of private and personal side, and then the public impact coming from this. And we'll definitely probably be seeing some major shifts when it comes to the police department, as new leadership often does here. So watch for more as we get more details on kind of what happens next. But that news coming out as of, again, just this afternoon, that the El Paso chief of police, Greg Allen, has passed away. Other major legal related news, not directly related to this story here, is that, of course, in the August 3rd Walmart shooting case, that the indicted shooter now will not be facing a death penalty in the federal court. Now, a few technicalities I want to make sure we lay out here. Among other things, that we were talking about the federal part of the trial. So this is going to be the announcement, of course, coming from the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas, which is notably now headed by the former El Paso District Attorney, Jaime Esparza. He's still facing 90 different federal charges, according to our news partners there at KFOX 14, including hate crimes resulting in death, counts of firearm to commit murder during and in relation to a crime of violence, hate crime with involving attempt to kill, and use of a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence. But of course, now the date being set there for January 8th, 2024 for the federal case. Now, there's some about this not being too surprising out there. And when you dig deeper into it, there has been, of course, a stop on essentially death penalty trials or seeking of the death penalty at the federal level, basically ever since this current administration has been in place. Specifically, that was an announcement made by the National Attorney General Merrick Garland. So for that to have been not the case in this circumstance, would have taken literally a decision out of Washington, D.C. for that to be shifted. So apparently that was either not sought or not granted in this case. We will see if anything else changes on that. But of course, the point I want to make here is that this still then leaves a couple of questions involving the state level trial. Now, that is the part that has been the focus of the entire kerfuffle involving the current district attorney's office. I mentioned the previous holder of the office there, but the upheaval that we have seen and now the settling of it in with the new district attorney in place, some of those remaining questions will be, will it be possible for the district attorney's office to seek its own trial before that January 8th, 2024 date for the federal trial? And there's a lot riding on that, including what will happen with the potential for death penalty charges at the state level. Texas, of course, the state itself does still have that. So that is a possibility there. But whether or not that can happen first, if there would still be the potential possibility of there being that other level of prosecution, even if the federal trial goes first. But whether or not it'll be then happening any kind of speedily way after that, because you definitely can't be doing both of the trials at the same time, I'm fairly certain. It might be logistically possible. Well, maybe technically possible. Logistically, I would say it's right out there. So yeah, a lot of people commenting on that and the potentials there, and a lot of also comments coming in about Chief Allen. Again, as we get more information on that and kind of what happened and what was going on with the chief, and for the releases from the city and from his family, as well as kind of what happens now and what happens next. We'll be sure to keep you all updated. So we're going to go ahead and take that first break of this hour right now. We got a whole lot more to come, including we'll be visiting with El Paso Inc. Robbie Gray, editor of the same, joining us here in studio in the next segment live. And of course, more on your a lot of comments coming in. We'll get to more of those, as well as more of the calls a little bit later in the show, as we usually do. We'll announce when we open up those phone lines. But some people chiming in right now, including Eric von Holstein Rathlow, John Brazelton, Dorlise Tor, and more, including John Brazelton, I guess, on the chief here, I guess is what I'm going to take this statement as. Some people like to die with their boots on, staying in office for as long as possible, I guess is what you're getting at there. But again, this news just coming out, so not a whole lot of details on what exactly was happening there as well, but also including Dorlise Tor saying RIP Chief, and a lot of other appeals and remembrances for the family as well. So we'll talk more about that. But again, visiting next segment with Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. So taking that first break, you are, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. More on this and our other subjects, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash is blocking the center lane on Joe Battle northbound at Rojas. An earlier crash on Gateway north at Trans Mountain still has El Paso Fire on the scene and causing slowing. 54 south from McCombs to Kenworthy is a 15-minute delay. And slowing on the I-10 eastbound Trans Mountain down to Wrestler, it's a 7-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West. That's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and my company is Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 to provide custom blinds, shades, and shutters at affordable prices. Our blinds are easy to install and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive professional. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at InspireSleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Hey, Texas, there are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
Attention Bachelor Nation. He's back. The host of some of America's most dramatic TV moments returns with the most dramatic podcast ever with Chris Harrison. During 2 decades in reality TV, Chris saw it all. And now he's telling all.
It's going to be difficult at times. It'll be funny. We'll push the envelope. But I promise you this, we have a lot to talk about.
Listen to the most dramatic podcast ever with Chris Harrison on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Make a New Year's resolution that's easy to keep. Help protect your identity and finances with LifeLock Identity Theft Protection. LifeLock detects identity threats you may miss on your own. And if you become a victim, LifeLock will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. Join now and save up to 25% off your first year. Go to LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, where most of the comments come in, one of the ones we've had up the longest here. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, including those dropping those likes and reacts. Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Monaco Cervantes, and James Holmes. We're getting more into some of those comments as well, including, of course, the news still developing anyway, about the passing announced today of El Paso's police chief, Greg Allen. But here to talk about those things and a whole lot more, including in-depth reporting in our region. We're joined here in studio right now by Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Thanks for joining us here. We usually do this first Tuesdays of the month, but intervening things, including the fact that the first day of the year was, first day back was a Tuesday. So we use that as kind of wrap up of major stories of the year. And then that little thing about a presidential visit last time around kind of blowing up and making us focus on those things last week. So getting back to it here and trying to get back on track for 2023.
Well, whenever it is, I'm happy to be here.
Very happy to have you on.
But I was leaving the office coming down here, and I just saw the announcement pop into my inbox about the police chief, and I gotta say it was quite shocking. I think it's come as a shock to many people. I can't say within the department or in the city, but I just know this wasn't something that anybody was expecting or we had heard anything about. I didn't have an opportunity to interview him a lot. He didn't particularly he was a little he didn't particularly like to talk to the media a lot, but when he did, he was pretty blunt. But he was certainly a important figure here in the community, heading up the police department for so long as he did.
I will say that he was often like at things, events, and may make some kind of statements. Yeah, getting a one-on-one. I never had the pleasure myself either to speak directly to him in any kind of one-on-one circumstance, or really even in a group. Any news conferences I was covering, I was not in a like that he was at. I was out of a position to directly ask him questions, more dealing with some of his lieutenants and other command staff. But I mean, yeah, this did come as kind of a surprise. I mean, I was racking my brain as soon as I heard it to think, was it something that I had missed or not kind of totally clocked that there was something going on with him? Because I think for a lot of people that's, in the general public, this may have come kind of out of the blue and definitely as a shock.
Yeah, we had a request in to get an interview with him, I think since December. But hadn't heard anything. And he was almost a stereotypical kind of image of a policeman. I mean, he had sort of a military image,
and bearing,
passion for the martial arts. That was sort of his bearing.
Yeah, right.
Kind of he definitely put forward a tough sort of figure. But haven't seen a cause of death released. He was 71, but I guess we'll just wait and see more news come out on that.
Exactly, and even beyond, again, some of the immediate things about, what will be happening with funeral arrangements, bereavances for the family, those kind of things. The major question that will be left over that will be tackled in due course, though I'm not sure at all quickly, will be kind of what happens next in terms of the position. So those will be some of the things we'll be keeping our eye on, certainly.
Yeah, we will be keeping an eye.
So in other, of course, in-depth news, of course, this happening today, this is not something that y'all have been able to fully dig into and report on. I'm sure this will be a part of the next edition of El Paso Inc. This news, but there has been other legal-ish news that y'all have been delving into, even beyond what we've discussed already today, including a prosecution of a Ponzi scheme, at least partially locally based, right?
Right. So the Justice Department announced today that an El Paso man pleaded guilty in federal court to 5 counts of wire fraud. Abner Tinoco, he's accused of stealing more than $9 million through a Ponzi scheme. So think like Bernie Madoff on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, Bernie Madoff was, it's the most famous name that comes along with that idea now, but he took it to a whole series of next levels, because usually these are on the, kind of who you know and who you can deal with. And the fact that, that case is exceptional in a vast number of ways, including the billions involved with it. But the fact of the matter is that this was getting prosecuted out of our local area is significant in its own way.
Yeah, clearly the Bernie Madoff scandal is exceptional, but on a
not in the good way, but
not in a good way.
The way that it is definitely an exception from the rule.
If you talk to the FBI and folks that investigate these things on a smaller scale, Ponzi schemes actually aren't all that unusual.
Yeah.
And they can be hard to detect until they fall apart. It's hard, until they fall apart, weirdly enough, it can be a little bit of a gray area. But in this case, what he's accused of is soliciting millions of dollars of investments from clients at his investment firm. And folks may have heard of it because they did do some advertising around town called Kick It and Mess. So he claimed he would invest their money into funds dealing with cryptocurrency, another controversial topic right now, and foreign exchange markets. Instead, the Justice Department alleges that he spent more than half on personal expenses. So that includes luxury cars, private jets, real estate, and jewelry.
And so essentially, for a Ponzi scheme, that may be a phrase many are familiar with, but maybe not know the total details of, essentially was taking the money and then, of course, stealing it, it's spending some of it, which could be just called stealing. It warrants the fact that he was then, I mean, the way Ponzi scheme works is paying out some of it in order to make it seem like, oh, no, this is working, and therefore to essentially as an enticement to bring more on.
Right. So it was sort of a partial Ponzi scheme in the sense that he would solicit the investment and then go to new investors and give that investment as sort of their returns. They weren't really returns on anything. There was no, at least what is alleged here is that there was nothing underneath it all, that there was no actual investment, where he was just sort of giving some of it forward as sort of profits and then basically spending half of it allegedly to buy cars and jets and all of that sort of thing. So at this point, according to the Justice Department announced today, he faces a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison plus restitution, and a sentencing date has not been decided.
So other illegal news in its own way coming out of here. Some of our comments coming in about, of course, about Bernie Madoff, including Flaco Jimenez saying Madoff made me too afraid to put too much money into one company, so it was a good wake-up call for investors. I guess if you can't be a good example, be an example to learn from, I guess, for others is a silver lining way that Flaco is putting it there. But I mean, yeah, and the fact that, again, it's happening locally is significant in its own right. But on other non-legal news, there are, of course, big things. We often talk about crane watches, developments going on here. Was definitely thinking about that in recent weekends. Had reason to go out to Butterfield Trail golf course recently and see the big new warehouses that are out in that region here. So development continues apace, but one thing that you'll be focusing on specifically even coming up here is about a big new downtown facility, specifically the new Children's Museum.
Yeah, so anybody that's been downtown has seen it rising. It's you can kind of still see the steel frame now. The shape of the cloud is coming together. So we had an opportunity to go on a tour of the building, one of the first tours. Spent some time with the CEO of Jordan Foster Construction, who's building it. That full interview, as well as the photos and the story, will be in our upcoming issue, but I'm happy to preview some of it here.
Of course, we're talking about La Nube, the El Paso Children's Museum and Science Center. That is, okay, it's not directly across from the ballpark, but it's pretty dang close there. Might be kind of technically catty corner to like a part of it. It might technically cover part of like that same on the stream.
Museum,
right.
Right across from the ballpark. So what's interesting about it, though, is it's designed by an international architecture firm, Snøhetta, to look like a cloud drifting through downtown. So it's really a one-of-a-kind building. I mean, you can think of like a concept car. I mean, it's a concept building. It's designed custom for this one thing. So it's for the company putting it together. It's not like you just go to the shelf and pull the pieces off the shelf. And the project manager was telling me that, I think we found 2 pieces of that building that may actually be the same shape and size. I mean, if you think of all this steel going up, the number one challenge for building a museum in the shape of a cloud is nothing is square. So it's been a real challenge to build.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I've seen some of I haven't actually gotten to be able to go through it myself yet, but seeing some of the, the concept drawings and the development has, anytime I've been going through downtown, of course, I take a time to drive by it and see how it's been coming up. And yeah, that very kind of iconic, both kind of smooth, but then like some significant jagged parts of it. I mean, representing all the different matter and shapes of a cloud there, and the idea of the science that goes in the study of it here. And it's a multi-level building as well, which may be, I mean, of course, for people of a certain age, which it may be an older phrase than I intend to be here, but like I grew up to going to like Insight Science Center and that place, and that was, it was a great facility on its own, but it was one story and kind of warehouse-esque in a lot of ways.
We went up 4 floors of it, and here's a couple little details that just give a sense of the complexity. I mean, they estimated there's 68,000 bolts for the job. So think a whole lot bigger than a Rector set.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever complain again doing a DIY project and needing to go to Lowe's or Home Depot again for a bolt. I mean, 68,000 of them. I mean, they said 1,300 to 1,500 metric tons of steel. That's around 3 million pounds.
Yeah.
And the complexity is not in the amount of steel. It's in the shapes and how it goes together as a custom building. At this point, there's about 80 people on site putting it together. because it's set to open this year. We'll see if it happens. They're working hard.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of the next question, is that with all of the anticipation of it here, and there's a lot of talk about other, particularly, quality of life bond projects here that we'll talk a little bit further about, is, kind of when the actual, ribbon cutting will be. And so we're in anticipation for it here, but still kind of like this year kind of talk, it sounds like, as opposed to any specific date yet.
Basically, just hopefully sometime this year. That's, I put it to the Jordan Foster Construction, which is building it, the project manager, supervisor, CEO, and they basically said that's what they're aiming for, is to have it done this year. And walking through it looks like they still have a lot of work, but we were able to walk through 4 floors of it. The outside of the building, they're putting the panels on 3 different colors of white, 10,000 different panels to give it that cloud color. I mean, it's a pretty complex project.
It is, and again, unique, one of a kind. I mean, a landmark in its own right for downtown. So that'll be something to keep our eye on as well. In that case, so again, if you're just joining us, guest right now, Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. We got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll talk more about some of what's going on with other downtown development, or lack thereof specifically, as well as some of the other big stories that are affecting us here in the region and based on their reporting. So got to take that break. Coming out of this, of course, comments going on online. We'll be getting to those phone calls here a little bit later, announcing once those will be open. Don't worry, but in any case, stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The man accused of the deadly El Paso Walmart shooting will not face the death penalty in the federal case against him. That's according to the federal prosecutor's office for the Western District of Texas. It's been more than 3 years since the shooting took place, and Patrick Crucius has yet to stand trial at either the state or federal level. Now, this decision is not exactly a surprise, since the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland halted all federal executions 2 years ago. Crucius is still facing the death penalty at the state level, although it's not clear when the state trial is expected to begin. A crash of an overturned vehicle in south central El Paso was an alleged human smuggling attempt. That crash happened yesterday morning at 6:30 on Gateway East between Durazno and Rosa. Several vehicles were involved. According to officials, the vehicle had 9 migrants inside and it drove off the road and crashed. Texas DPS says the driver suffered minor injuries and that the driver was arrested and charged with human smuggling. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A crash northbound Joe Battle at Rojas is causing slowing. The center lane is blocked there from that accident. Hawkins Boulevard northbound at Gateway East, an accident reported. On Gateway North at the Loop, Trans Mountain, that accident from earlier has cleared. And still seen slowing on the 54 southbound from McCombs to Kenworthy with 12-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. We're going to dry things out for your Wednesday, but for tomorrow, as we get drier, it's also going to be windier and cooler. Highs only in the lower 50s, still about a 10% chance of a shower for our Wednesday. For your Thursday, the weather looking nicer, lighter winds by Thursday, high around 52, and we'll see breezy to windy conditions, but warmer temperatures for your Friday with a high around 60. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Hot and Crispy Fries. Wendy's knows everyone hates cold, soggy fries, so they changed theirs to serve them up hot and crispy, guaranteed, using only natural cut skin on fries prepared to golden goodness and perfectly sprinkled with sea salt. Guaranteed to be hot and crispy. If yours aren't, bring them back and they'll replace them at participating U.S. Wendy's.
How pain turned an avid outdoorsman into a frustrated indoorsman. Meet Ron.
I was always active. Fishing, swimming, hiking.
Until his flat feet brought it all to a grinding halt.
It is sharp pain shooting up your leg to your back.
And the pain was just the beginning.
When you're hurting, you can't move. So I ended up being a couch potato and my health declined.
Fortunately, Ron had someone in his corner.
My wife said, that's it. I'm going to take you to the Good Feet store,
where he was personally fitted for arch supports.
I took one step, there was no back pain. I took another step, no knee pain. And after my second step, I went into my Good Feet dance.
Today, he's grateful to be back in the great outdoors.
I feel like a new person, thanks to the Good Feet store.
See for yourself how arch supports can help you. Stop by for your free fitting or schedule one at goodfeet.com.
Airway Boulevard at I-10.
Cash Blitz scratch tickets from the Texas Lottery are here. Play for a shot at top prizes from $5,000 to $1 million. Plus, enter to win a VIP iHeart trip and more at TexasLottery.com.
Staples helps you start the new year off right with big savings on everything you need for your business. Now, Staples Reward members get $30 back in a Staples store bonus when they spend $100. Rewards members only. Store bonus redeemable in store only. Offer ends 1/21. Save big at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you're able to tune in to us, see us, chime in if you want to, that's the right place for you to be as we continue our mission to have live local radio here in the borderland and talk about the things that affect us here, because no one else is really going to talk about it the way that we do. People who live here, work here, experience the things here. Other people always telling us what we should do and think, and that never just quite works out in my mind here. So to talk more about some of those other things that have definitely been going on in our region, still joined here in studio by Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Thanks for sticking around with us here.
Good to be here, Andrew.
Absolutely happy to have you on to talk about some of the things. So beyond some of the breaking news and stuff being dealt with right today, there are of course some of these overarching topics that are of great significance. Particularly, kind of sticking with downtown here for a second, because there are still kind of questions brewing about what happens next whenever it comes to, the Multipurpose Performing Arts and Entertainment Center, MPC, or more commonly known as the Arena to most people in the area, or the downtown arena. And the fact that we had that right at the start of the year, very significant vote from City Council to, the final item wasn't titled this, but there was a part of the item called abandoning the downtown arena project that was, there was a lot of significance coming out of the last city council election that we, of course, covered and had some, live election coverage, including yourself, of course, even though that ended up going to the runoff that we still covered later on. But that being on an agenda item after this decade, let's just call it, nice round decade of movement on it, moving forward, lawsuits, etc. All of that is significant in its own right. But even now, as we're, a couple weeks removed from that initial decision, there are still plenty of questions remaining about kind of what happens next, including for, the kind of area on the ground. Like, it's not even necessarily settled what now happens with some of the land, because some of it had been even now purchased by the city in that footprint area we've been talking about.
Yeah, as the Children's Museum rises, the arena has yet to move forward. Many of those who had kids back when that bond was passed, they're no longer kids to enjoy the Children's Museum. It's been a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, at this point, really, that vote by City Council has raised more questions than it answered. You look at the Duranguito area, and as you said, the city does own a number of those properties in there. They're in poor condition. Some of them were, at one point they attempted to demolish some of them. They have holes.
Some holes knocked in, like a number of them.
Right. So they're in poor condition. So, if you talk to the opponents of the city's plan for the arena, the one that the city abandoned, their hope is that the area could become a historic district, and that would open it up for historic tax credits.
Right.
And then at some point, it would actually attract investment and development there. Those that supported that original arena project are pretty upset by the moves by City Council. They argue that, they essentially decided to take, how much is it now? 160 something million.
Yeah.
That would have been available through the bond to develop an amphitheater, kind of a multi-purpose center,
right?
As well as invest into incorporating some of those historic buildings into the project.
Mhm.
But now that money is off the table, so it leaves this area of town that's partly owned by City Council in very poor shape, basically sitting there with a lot of questions about what happens to that next.
And so even just, again, that's the specific area we're talking about. basically just south of the convention center and kind of the area we've been talking about here. And so that's the kind of land and situation there.
Yeah,
But
and
then,
I mean, the other piece of this, as you mentioned, the convention center, it's like, okay, so what is the plan now with those funds?
true.
And of course, the lawsuits are still going on. They're still an issue, and some of those early ones revolved around the issue of what those dollars could be spent on, what was defined as sort of an arena, and what voters actually approved. So, the one concept I have heard mentioned from some of the city leaders is that the funds could be used to perhaps update the Abraham Chavez Theater, which is old and in poor condition, and then maybe the convention center. But of course, that raises questions on if those funds can be used for that.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, some of the earlier lawsuits focus specifically on what the language of the item as voted on by El Paso citizens was and what that involves. I mean, that was more in the progression of the lawsuits around the idea of sports and what, multi-purpose, those kind of questions. But I think one of the major things that came out of that hadn't really been considered in this way until this moment now is that it kind of says that, okay, this money was voted on in such a way. So unless there is some other action, that it might not be able to be just kind of shifted, as some has said. I mean, some had suggested in comments and such about, okay, maybe we could just, put that into the streets. We need it for the streets kind of thing here, for the road improvements that we have this other bond. Clearly we need more. And so that kind of a shift like that, just saying like, okay, let's put the money somewhere else, that I feel at this point would be unlikely. But putting into like related projects like you're saying, those are kind of some of the questions that we're still at this point wondering about, as it seems like city staff still probably trying to figure out a way forward at this point.
Yeah, at this point, that's sort of the only thing I've heard is the possibility of investing that into the Abraham Chavez Theater and Convention Center. But we're sort of waiting for city leaders to come back with another plan on that. I mean, those pursuing this coverage going forward, those are the two big questions I have: is what's the future of Duranguito, and what's the plan for those funds that were passed by voters, I think a decade ago now.
I mean, yeah, the 2012 quality of life bond is what this was a part of here. And I mean, I'm not going to exactly call it insight, but potentials coming out of what was presented alongside with this vote that happened at City Council, first meeting of the year, that much vaunted, six-figure study that was done, whether it's like 700 and change or 800,000, however you want to put it here. There was a lot of discussion, of course, about arena projects and things, but there was also in there, really delving into it, a lot about the space, the area, what buildings are there, including, very significant to me, a listing of the properties owned by the city or just in the footprint in general that could potentially be listed in, like, say, the National Register of Historic Places. So I don't think that study is now, I mean, again, interesting enough that the results of it put out right as they said, okay, never mind, City Council, that is, but I don't think it's totally useless or rendered moot by that, because there's still some interesting things that be brought out of it. So this is so much to say that there are a lot of questions. There may be some more data that can be used, but again, it's going to, ball's kind of back in like city staff and city council's court of what to do now. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what they actually want to move forward with when it comes to, again, that remaining $100 million and change of funds.
And in the meantime, there is a private sector plan that was put forward for Sunland Park.
Right, of course.
It's sort of it's a little vague, but sort of a amphitheater or arena project out there, perhaps by the racetrack out in Sunland Park, and that is a purely private sector kind of effort to put one out there.
Right. And so that's been at least part of the conversation going on with, again, if you're just joining us, guest right now, Robbie Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. If you want to find anything about their reporting, what we're talking about here, of course, elpasoinc.com. But even beyond that, there is, of course, a lot of other things that are going on when it comes to like the outlook for downtown. I mean, we're talking about some of the facilities that are either being, dealt with or built up, finished out here. Some conversation going on in our comments as well about some potential companies looking to either relocate or expand their operations here, including, if I'm not mistaken, a trucking company, but them looking at kind of outside of city limits because of concerns about red tape and the difficulty it is versus being just out in the county there. But there's at least some conversations y'all been able to have with some local developers on kind of what outlooks look like for 2023, because I mean, this last few years have been upheaval would be a mild way to put it, because there's been so many things that have changed, so many things that have just not been available. I mean, you got supply chains, you got labor supply, you got again, willingness of people, restrictions in place. So it's been a tumultuous time in its own right. So coming into this year, there's a lot of questions of, okay, where are we now? What can happen? And that's some of the questions y'all will be able to talk about, right?
Given the work that they do, construction companies tend to have a pretty good sort of sense of where the economy is going. I mean, it's like looking into a crystal ball. I mean, who knows? Who knows that
Sure.
COVID would have happened? But while I was talking to Darren Woody, who's the CEO of Jordan Foster Construction, as we were walking through the Children's Museum, I wanted to get a sense from him on sort of what his gut was telling him on where the economy is going. And his sense was that things are definitely going to slow down into this year. I've heard it sort of referred to as sort of a transition year, but his sense is that 2023 is going to be flat. So we're going to see a bit of a slowdown. It's going to be sort of flat. And then his hope was that it would start to improve in 2024.
Okay.
And a lot of the factors are all the same things that people have been talking about. So the Fed is intentionally working to slow the economy down.
Right.
We are seeing the effects of that with inflation come down, but also the concerns of recession.
Mm.
And then they are facing all the same challenges that they have been for the past year. So staffing issues, supply chain issues, rising costs where materials are, they're having to estimate projects at 20 to 30%, higher.
Yeah.
Their private sector, some of their private sector clients on projects are really kind of putting things on pause while they watch to see where things are going. So I think the bottom line on what he was saying is it's a bit of a flat year as expected.
Yeah, that's it's I mean, there's a lot of projections, and yeah, my crystal ball is as cloudy as ever, but there's potentials there. But also notable, kind of related to this and what might be happening, particularly with the downtown area, is that a little bit more investigation, at very least from your most recent edition as well, of what may or may not be going on with well, I mean, we've been talking about buildings coming up, but then of course we've also seen a couple at least damaged and at least one coming down, the J&J Shoes warehouse that had the fire that was happened into it and was pretty well gutted by it. A little bit more investigation coming out about that.
And that's really just the latest blow to the downtown shopping district. That fire happened back in December. They're getting a little better sense
Right.
of the cause. They're investigating that. Originally, it was reported that it was started by a dumpster fire.
Right.
Turns out not true. Looks they haven't pinpointed what started it, but it looks like the dumpster may have caught fire later.
Yeah. Okay.
But we also talked to some of the surrounding businesses as well. The fire impacted them directly, but also there's, that area of downtown is its own little economy. When you go down Stanton and El Paso
Yeah.
Street, what used to be called the Golden Horseshoe now is El Centro. And it's all these little retail shops are very dependent on the shoppers from Mexico. And that business has just been disrupted by, of course, the border disruptions all the way through the pandemic and now with the migrant issues. And then, of course, they're very sensitive to price. So talking to the retailers down there, they basically just told us it's just very sad at the moment. That's the word they use. It's sad.
So a little bit more detail coming out about that. But of course, I mean, give and take is what we've been talking about here. And it may not have been the newest building, but bringing up another one. We've seen over the years, anyway, in very long view, a lot of development happening into downtown, redevelopment of existing buildings, major investments that are happening in more recent years as well. But, like the Texas Tower, the Plaza Hotel, things like that. So, I mean, it's unfortunately, I would call it more give than take at the moment. But, I mean, unfortunately, things like this happen that you end up taking away from downtown. But another one definitely to watch here. Before we end up letting you go here, Robbie, of course, I would be very remiss if we didn't at least mention the fact that, of course, we had the El Paso of the Year announcement. We had you on last time. We talked about the candidates, the potentials there. And then we did finally have the announcements of the winners for this year. And you also have an upcoming event that will involve them as well, right?
That's right. So the event to support our El Pasoan of the Year and Community Spirit honorees is March 2nd. It's an annual event we do to honor the El Paso of the Year. And if we have one, the Community Spirit honoree, this year our El Pasoans of the Year is Woody and Gail Hunt. That stems from their $25 million donation to the College of Business at UTEP. It's the largest donation that UTEP has ever received, as well as a lifetime of giving to the community through their foundation. The Community Spirit Award honoree is cellist Zool Bailey. He's a world-renowned cellist who is very, very focused on El Paso, what she considers his hometown. So he plays at the food bank, he plays at senior centers, he plays free concerts, and they've really sort of brought chamber music to the people here in El Paso.
Yeah, was able to see him most recent time, and this is a few years ago, so recent may not be the right phrase, but actually before County Commissioners Court started one of their meetings. So just kind of a personal example I've been able to see about them literally being out in the community and promoting it. And every time we talk about him, I feel worthy to note multi-Grammy Award winning artist as well. So this is not just a good guy doing stuff around town here that we should recognize, but getting nationally and internationally recognized as well for his work and his efforts. So I mean, very deserving of the award. I guess what I'm coming up to.
Biggest booster when he's out on the road, and
Absolutely.
He brings international attention here. But the event is March 2nd to honor them.
Absolutely there. So more details will be coming up. Check, of course, elpasoinc.com for those details, as well as all of their reporting, and of course to be able to subscribe there. The tickets are available now. So again, editor of El Paso Inc., Robbie Gray, thank you very much for joining us here to talk about some of the big stories, big events, items going on in and around town. Not quite at the start of the month, but as close as we could get to it here today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely happy to have you on. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take that next break now and go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do. So if you want to get on the line, they're open now. The number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We'll be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Eastlake, an earlier crash, multiple vehicles up on the right shoulder, no lanes blocked, but causing a backup from the loop out to Horizon with 5-minute delays. South Desert Boulevard at Artcraft, disabled semi is blocking the left shoulder, causing delays there. I-10 eastbound is slow from the downtown exits to Paisano with 7-minute delays. Montana Avenue now has a 15-minute delay between Hawkins and Zaragoza. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I sell custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters that are easy to install at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are custom-made for your windows, and I guarantee they'll fit. Don't hire a pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at InspireSleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunday Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us be El Paso's #1 volume dealer in new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sales in 2022. Our goal is to ensure that everyone gets the best deals and exceptional trade-in offers so we can be #1 again in 2023.
Trade in and trade up for less during the Start Something New sales event at Sunday Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. For a limited time, get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram trucks. Super low 1.9% APR on 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees, and get $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, we have a huge selection of new Dodge Chargers and certified pre-owned vehicles with the best prices in town. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. Trade in and trade up for less at Sunlight Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 and Sunlight Park Drive, or online at sunlightparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Hey, Texas, did you know that individuals in the
living with serious mental illness are more susceptible to severe COVID-19? Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov for vaccination resources to help reduce the risk and keep yourself and your fellow Texans informed and protected this holiday season. Stay healthy, Texas.
Walgreens wants to make it easy to refill your Medicare prescriptions. That's why they offer 90-day refills, refill by scan using your phone, even save a trip refills so you can pick up all your prescriptions with ease. So fill your way at Walgreens. Exclusions may apply.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
God bless it. All right, welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in on the show, interact with it. Particularly at this point during the program, we do have those phone lines open. If full up at the moment here, pretty short segment here, so we're just kind of tag in and tag out. But again, that number, keep it in mind, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of stuff to get to here today. I mean, just reviewing some of the major subjects we've discussed right now. This hour, of course, the passing of El Paso's chief of police, breaking news today, as well as some updates on the federal prosecution of the indicted August 3rd shooter. And then, of course, a lot of stuff going on in and around downtown and development of the region, as we were talking about with El Paso Inc. So a lot more to come here, and we'll be taking your calls. So got to take that break for the top of the hour right now, but if you're on the line, stay there. Again, if you want to squeeze in a little bit later when the lines are again available, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of people chiming in. We'll get to some of those comments and, of course, those calls after this break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A stalled semi is blocking the left shoulder, causing delays on South Desert Boulevard at Artcraft. 5-minute delays on the 10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Wrestler. And again on the I-10 eastbound from the downtown exits to Paisano, it's a 7-minute delay. I-10 eastbound in the lower valley at East Lake. An earlier crash has been cleared off to the right. Multiple vehicles blocking the right shoulder, causing a backup from the loop out to Horizon with 5-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
Getting a news feed on your phone while driving
makes driving more difficult. This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed.
Shouldn't we listen?
They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service
News
and the
on
Ad
the
Council.
hour and a half. traffic, and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House is staying tight-lipped on the classified documents recently found in an office and residence of President Biden. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre refused to give any more information on the controversy and referred reporters to the White House counsel's office and the Department of Justice. Jean-Pierre emphasized, however, the administration is fully cooperating with the investigation. 6 people were murdered in what police in Central California call a cartel-style execution. The Tulare County Sheriff's Office says the gunman opened fire at a home Monday morning in Goshen, southeast of Fresno.
This is a known home to our department. This is where gang activity has routinely occurred in the past.
That's Sheriff Mike Boudreau. Investigators say the family, including an infant and mother, died in a targeted attack. New York City Mayor Eric Adams admits the city is running out of room for migrants, but he's also vowing to continue taking them in. Adams told reporters, "That is our law, and that's what's morally right." The mayor added FEMA should be involved in the same way we treat any major crisis. Southwest Airlines says most customers affected by last month's travel nightmare have received their refunds. Lisa Taylor has more.
According to the company, 90% of passengers on canceled flights have gotten their money back, and the remaining 10% should be refunded in the next few days. Southwest added that all bags with name tags on them have been returned as well. The Dallas-based airline said it will spend more than $1 billion on system upgrades to avoid another catastrophe. I'm Lisa Taylor.
2 high-profile conservative lawmakers are now receiving committee assignments after being stripped of them in the Democratic-controlled House in 2021. House Republicans gave Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar spots on the Oversight and Accountability Committee. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is thinking about sending migrants upstate.
With the city at its breaking point after welcoming roughly 40,000 migrants, Mayor Adams says it would help other localities losing population.
I think it's a win-win.
He's calling on the feds to change laws barring new arrivals from working immediately.
That doesn't make common sense.
The city's projected spending on new arrivals so far is at roughly $1 billion, and the mayor has submitted an emergency mutual aid request to the state, but says money alone isn't the answer.
We must address the problem and have proper coordination.
I'm Natalie Migliori.
The White House is pressing House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to reveal terms of the deal with conservative lawmakers that secured him the Speaker's gavel. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates said Republicans have yet to come clean about the secret agreements McCarthy made with extreme MAGA House members. Bates warned the extent of the deals between McCarthy and the Republicans who initially opposed his bid for Speaker could wreak havoc on the economy and key government programs. Water is being released from one California reservoir as fears grow that it could overflow, with the state's rain totals at historic levels. Jordan Christmas has more.
In a move that seemed unlikely just a month ago, the Army Corps of Engineers released water from the Lake Mendocino Reservoir. Officials say they released the water because there was too much of it. They wanted enough space to keep the flood pool from overflowing. A lot of water has been getting into reservoirs and underground aquifers across the state because of 9 atmospheric rivers over the last 3 weeks.
Police are investigating after security screeners reportedly found an Army anti-tank weapon at the San Antonio International Airport. TSA officers found what appears to be an 84mm Carl Gustaf M4 anti-tank recoilless rifle in a checked luggage on Monday. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Bank. That's bank. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I sell custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters that are easy to install at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are custom-made for your windows, and I guarantee they'll fit. Don't hire a pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur with words from another happy payroll customer.
My accountant recommended we switch. We did. I was terrified, but Patriot is so easy to use and they do it right. Now we keep our accountant super happy and I don't have to spend a lot of time on my employees and my payroll and my taxes. I can actually get back to work.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all.
iHeartRadio.
Access to all of your favorite radio stations.
It's Ryan Seacrest. I go by the name of Charlamagne the God.
Hi, I'm Ellen K.
Bobby Bones here.
Hola, soy Enrique Santos. Access to all of the best free curated playlists.
My favorite music. The best songs.
A little bit of everything.
Access to all of the great podcasts for every interest.
The Stuff You Should Know podcast.
The Daily Show podcast.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
And best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good. But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost, but more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days. Anyway, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. However you're tuning in, however you're getting us, and however you want to continue the communication. Of course, there's a lot of ways you can do that. Again, the social media pages, we got a lot of comments coming in, including those dropping those likes and reacts, including Christina Monroy, Richard Janessi, Guy DeVeza Gardner, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, James Holmes, and more chiming in, including Edgar Ortiz being on board with us, Eric Von Holstein, Rath, and Marky Mandingo, having an interesting conversation about the back and forth with the potential for, all these development and these other things here. RJ also saying over on the YouTube a little bit before, saying that for all these years, we'll be lucky to get a parking garage with a $200 basketball goal, talking about those downtown development and projects here. I mean, the arena and or what will become of it, or the project idea. Anyway, still a lot of questions remaining there, but I mean, some potentials, and then more being talked about, what Robbie Gray, our guest there, thanks to him from the previous segment, Marky Mendiga responding to that idea of the private arena / entertainment venue, whatever it is, maybe next to the Sunland Park racetrack and casino, saying Sunland Park has lots of room, but New Mexico has an income tax that usually causes people to stay in Texas because Texas is the best state in the union. I'm not trying to quibble with you on that other point there, but Eric Von Holstein Rathwell saying that Marky Mandingo, with the property taxes in El Paso, it can be less expensive to pay income tax in New Mexico. I mean, that is kind of the upshot here, as sure, we don't have an income tax, and for those of working, that can be significant, but particularly start thinking about facilities and the major investment that goes along with them. I mean, you these days, you're instantly in the millions. There's no way to not be, unless you're, I mean, heck, I even think parks these days probably going to cost that much, and maybe not as much of a income generation prospect that you get with it there. So the fact that they're going to have major facilities, I could see an argument to be made that having less of a property tax, given that that's the only taxation that can happen. I guess that's kind of one of those misnomers I almost always end up running into. People saying that, oh, well, we don't get taxed here in Texas. Oh, you absolutely get taxed. It just is not done on your income. So if you're generating income, hey, good, more power to you. But if you got property, as I am learning, yeah, it can be significant. Also, some other conversation about Merrick Garland, and of course remembrances and rest in pieces and condolences for the families of El Paso Chief of Police Greg Allen, whose passing has been announced today by a city statement. So a lot to break down there and get further into it. So let's go ahead and jump onto those phone lines now as well. Of course, they're open, full up at the moment, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Let's jump right in with Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Andrew. Do you have children?
Not of the non-furry kind, no.
Okay. Well, okay. If you did have a child and a 13-year-old, okay, and your pediatrician just informed you that your child is obese under guidelines and everything, what would you suggest doing? For that child?
I mean, there's a whole lot of things. What I'll say is this, that depending on even how the measurement of obesity can be done, a lot of stuff can be done on, like, say, BMI, which doesn't even take really body size. Like, people that are like, 6'4" and within what would be considered a healthy weight range for them be considered obese. So I want to know more about the specific diagnosis. I'm not trying to quibble with you here, but that is a significant issue that also happens. But again, everyone's situation is different. Are we talking about a kid that is largely sedentary, as happens these days? And I am frankly guilty of myself, so maybe they're emulating me too much. Is it something where they've got other medical conditions? So I want to know more about, okay, how does this interact with their specific situation, and what are some of the solutions that apply to them? I guess what I'd be looking for is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but rather what can be specifically workable for them.
Okay. Let's say for sure, this kid is fat. Okay.
Okay.
This kid is fat. It needs to do something. What would you want the child, and what would you advise the child to do?
I mean, depending on, diet, exercise, those kind of things, the way I'm coming around to it as I'm, doing, New Year's reevaluation of lifestyles, as everyone often does, is exercise is good. Getting out and about, doing stuff is important and helps build up, the lean muscle that helps support weight loss. And I'm not trying to put this forth as medical advice. This is just what I've been looking at and studying here. But diet is probably the most important part of it, because the way it's often put to me is here, you can't out-exercise a bad diet.
Okay, and that's good. And the bad diet, we're talking about healthy changes in your lifestyle habits, things like that. Well, I was listening to ABC News Extra this Sunday, and they had Dr. Okaranza and a bariatric surgeon from UFMC was interviewed on ABC on the program, and they're recommending, according to the Pediatric Society of the United States, they've now said that medical interventions and bariatric surgery for minors 13 and older is a good idea. That it'll take care of the problem. Now, also in my readings, I'm sitting there saying, one of the things they say to reach successful results after surgery, patients must optimize their lifestyle changes, habits, okay, make healthy dietary choices, meet nutritional requirements, okay, for the rest of their lives, they're going to have to do these things. I mean, if you do bariatric surgery, this is going to change everything in your life. You have to adhere to a diet for the rest of your life. And the 13-year-old, I have a feeling, would have a hard time doing that, especially if, once something happens to mom or dad or something like that, what are they going to do? And then adhere to a robust physical activity level. These are all things that they must do after the surgery in order to be successful. So wouldn't it be better, to at least attempt to do those things before the surgery? And instead of altering this kid's life for the rest of all the rest of his life?
So I'm going to speak a little bit from experience of people that I've known here. In short answer, yes, but it's a whole lot more complicated than that. So I actually knew I don't know the specific procedure they were talking about there, but I've personally known someone that had the, bariatric reduction surgery. It wasn't even just the stomach stapling in their case. It's literally the situation, they described it to me, as where the capacity of their stomach is now roughly about like 2 hard-boiled eggs worth or something on that order. Like that's how much it's been brought down to, and the rest of the tissue removed. Now there's a dozen or more that I'm aware of, and I am not a surgeon or a weight loss specialty expert, so do not take this as that. There's a bunch of different ones out there and possibilities, including like there's balloons, there's evacuation chambers, there's a whole lot of tech out there that has been developed. I mean, I've known this person for more than a decade and a half at this point, so it's developed a lot since there. But I will say that, I mean, there's something about psychology, about push comes to shove versus I should versus I have to. But I will also say, whenever it comes to life-altering surgeries for someone that is not strictly able to legally consent to it themselves here, given the age side of it, I do tend to take at least a second, if not a third, fourth, etc., look in consideration to it. But I mean, let's just say it this way, that there is definably a problem when it comes to this in our country. That has been no secret when it comes to weight loss. So, I mean, there's been certain ways that have been put forth. One that comes to mind is the idea, and don't get me wrong, I'm strictly opposed to this idea, but of like, say, regulating has been put in other states, like sugary soft drink sales, putting extra tax on them or banning them outright in some cases has been a way to try to address this here. The way they're coming at it is, of course, on the kind of individual and what can you do in your own life. So, yeah, ideally, it would be that you address this through diet and exercise and deal with it as you can. Unfortunately, I'm not sure, like, I mean, I'm going to think back to my like PE classes back in, elementary, middle, and high school, and like they were useful, but they were more about like, all right, can you do the stretch test and meet the metrics that we need for, okay, I didn't actually have to do like the presidential fitness test that all of the sitcoms end up going through, but like they were interested in those kind of metrics in order to, prove certain things. But unfortunately, as I keep hearing about in our country to this day, and the way our education system is the physical idea of anything that isn't like classroom achievement, unless you're like a star athlete or getting well in that, kind of falls by the wayside, the physical part of it. I mean, so I think there's probably a few things that need to be addressed with it, but strictly on the like personal level, like you're getting at here, I would think that would be the way to start it. But I mean, everyone's situation is different. I will say that.
I mean, right now, I mean, they've all but eliminated PE in schools now and everything. There's no emphasis on that. They feed children really horrendous food for sugary, a lot of starches and everything else for lunch and things of that sort. It just seems to me that this is, a 13-year-old, you're gonna make life. It's sort of like, I've got a 13-year-old that believes that he is a girl, and we need to start doing things to make it where he can feel comfortable in that feeling at 13. I can see an adult making these kind of choices.
Sure.
But to take a child that's going to have to live with these choices for the rest of their lives, and knowing that even adults, a great deal of adults that can go through that bariatric surgery are very, very they are not successful because they end up eating as much as they did before. They stretch their stomach out, they gain the weight back, and it just doesn't seem like this is a good idea to me. And I what do you think? You think? I mean,
yeah.
Dr. Okaranza, he's a pediatrician. And this bariatric surgeon over at UMC is saying, they were actually saying that this is the best thing in the world for a child to do.
Again, I'm of a similar mind of here, but again, I have not studied necessarily this issue. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this field or in the parts of it, but I guess I have similar level of concerns to what you're talking about there about doing such a thing, particularly since, I mean, the holy grail when it comes to all of this would be one pill that you take and it fixes all your bodily issues and it makes you, the shape that you want to be, so to speak here. That, whether or not that'll ever actually be achievable, I mean, we're getting into the realm of science fiction at that point here, but that's kind of like what all of these things are striving towards. How much can be done for you without little impact to yourself here, and frankly, when it comes to this whole field, or there's not much that can actually be done that way without you actually having to commit and change for it there. So, I mean, yeah, and there's even other comments like Ion Graham mentioning about the cost of food and the healthiness that is available of some of it here. I mean, yeah, there's like fruits and veggies end up being more expensive pound per pound than like chips and soda, which is just so screwed up as to be an entire other show here. But yeah, in general, given the fact that these other skills have to be developed in any case, in any course, in order to support it, and not for, because I mean, once you do that surgery, at the very least, again, the people that I've known that have done similar things, I mean, it could be life-threatening if they don't actually end up going with it. But John Browselton saying, I'm talking about steroids now when it comes to one thing to do. And yeah, those come with their own problems. Let me just say it that way if you're getting on the gear. But again, in general, yeah, I would say that it gives me pause, and I would want to know a hell of a lot more about the specific and how it applies to this situation. Kind of what I said at the start, one size fits all has rarely worked out for me. I'll put it that way.
One last thing. In this article, it says it's pre-surgery nutritional status assessment is highly recommended because including biomarkers. Okay, for the rest of this person's life, you've got to look at iron, folate, ferritin, iron binding capacity, vitamin B12, vitamin B6, calcium levels, parathyroid hormone, vitamin D levels, potassium, zinc, magnesium, calcium, all these things. For the rest of their lives, they're going to have to have these kind of things. They're going to have to do an assessment all the time. And if they don't do it, they can get themselves in lots of trouble. I think a 13-year-old, you have to tell a 13-year-old to brush its teeth, much less take vitamins on a regular basis.
Again, there's a level of concern there, but I definitely...
That's the last.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I mean, it's certainly an important topic and one that certainly has been discussed here locally, so I understand you bringing it up here. But I guess I would know, it's kind of back to the hypothetical you put there, I'd want to know what the situation is for the people we're talking about, even if they are, grossly overweight, that kind of thing. And then, how this would relate to them and kind of, I mean, there might be differences in personal maturity. Maybe there are kids that get emancipated because of reasons for themselves and who they're involved with. So I guess there's possibilities, but the devil is, as always, in the details. So I'd want to know about that for sure.
Okay. And last but not least, let's go, Brandon.
All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now, because we got more calls and comments on the line coming in here, including some more discussion about this, among other things. But let's go ahead and take that break. And if you want to get on the line, don't forget that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso police on the scene of a crash, Gateway East at North Yarborough Drive. I-10 eastbound at East Lake in the Lower Valley. An earlier crash has multiple vehicles up on the right shoulder and delays from the loop out to Horizon with 10-minute delays. I-10 eastbound Prospect downtown exits to Paisano is a 9-minute delay. And it's slow eastbound Montana from Hawkins to Zaragoza, 17-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Winning $1,000 incites all kinds of emotions.
Are you kidding? No way.
What to do with it is up to you.
We're going to Key West, that's it. What are you, nuts? We're going to Atlantic City.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 with inflation compensation.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Enter the nationwide keyword at ktsmradio.com for your chance to win. Brought to you by Sunland Park, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, where buying a car is fun.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and my company is Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 to provide custom blinds, shades, and shutters at affordable prices. Our blinds are easy to install and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive professional. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at InspireSleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Hey, Tech
Texas. This time of year is all about coming together and enjoying time-honored holiday traditions or starting your own. This winter, make sure your fellow Texans, especially those with a serious mental health condition, know how to stay informed and protected from increased COVID-19 risks associated with serious mental illness. Getting vaccinated is pro-Texan protection against COVID-19. Visit www.vaccines.gov/search to find a vaccine provider near you.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out heart-stopping letters, aggressively garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. Don't let the tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, the #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks that the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands. Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, they'll fight to get you the best deal possible. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-627-7754. 800-627-7754. 800-627-7754.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A lot of interesting conversations there, not ones that I guess... It's always a ride whenever we do this now, isn't it? Even if it isn't Free for All Friday, because, I mean, it was brought up locally, so you discuss it here. But if you want to get on the line, again, full up at the moment, but if you want to squeeze in, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A couple of questions coming in about that, including Eric von Holstein asking, if you eat a ton of celery in one setting, how much would you weigh? Flaco Jimenez putting it about, as well as I think you could put there, Flaco Jimenez saying, if you were still alive, in parentheses, not likely, 1 ton plus your current weight. I think trying to riff off the idea of that celery is like a calorie neutral food because it takes about as much energy for your body to burn it as it does actually like calories in it, so, or even calorie negative depending on how you measure it here. I don't think you'd be physically able to eat depends on the length of your sitting, I guess. If you're going to be sitting there for a year, yeah, maybe. If you're like super committed to eating that 1 ton, maybe not even then. That's one heck of a thought experiment. So in any case, I wouldn't recommend it. Diet and exercise often means changing the balance of things and not just slavishly adhering to something here. On a slightly more serious note, Austin Redfern asking, please forgive the question, but did the chief of police die while in office? Yes, this has come out today. El Paso Chief of Police Greg Allen has passed. The announcement coming out this morning to actual service members, those on the police force, as well as the announcement coming out this afternoon from the city of El Paso, and statements from the mayor and city manager at this point so far. So yes, he was in office as far as we were aware, and so weren't any modifications. So this comes as a shock in a lot of ways here. And back on the lighter side, Matt Olson asking, would that the celery be with or without peanut butter? So a lot of questions coming in there. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in, adding their 2 cents, including Matt Olson, Ion Graham, Christina Monreal, Richard Genesee, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. So let's go ahead and jump back on all these phone lines right now. Okay, Eric clarifying that was a ripoff from an old Robin Williams joke, probably before my time, but it's heck of a thought experiment. Anyway, okay, let's get back to those phone lines now. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
So here it is, Friday. Last Friday, minding my own business, and I tune into your program, right? And the first thing I hear on your program is awful Andrew calling me a squirrel. Not only a squirrel, but a squirrely squirrel. What the heck is that? Where did he come up? First off, hey, awful Andrew, I don't have a bushy tail. I'm not gray in pallor, and I don't eat acorns. So I don't know where the heck you're coming up when I'm a squirrel. Now, having said that, I am so surprised, Andrew. I didn't hear anything at all of you saying about this horrible, horrible situation in Albuquerque with this conservative kook nut job, and he and his buddies shooting bullets into the homes of Democrats. Did you say anything about that? I didn't remember you saying anything. I didn't hear anything about that. Did you say something?
Yeah, not yet today, though that's certainly been one of the things going on here. Have a note on it here about, and actually to further beyond that, it was a state house representative or a member who was going for the state house, and he's now been arrested. And I think it was more than just his buddies, if I'm remembering correctly, trying to pull it up here. It was actually people that he had hired in order to perpetuate shootings in the area for those he felt had wronged him here. So, not one that we'd gotten to today yet so far with all the other local things going on, but bad. Okay, Solomon Pena, who was the Republican candidate for the New Mexico House District 14. There's the picture of him with, I'm going to call it an interesting haircut, being taken into custody by police, actually on Monday.
Well, rightly so they should take him in. Now, this is the land of enchantment. You know how I love the land of enchantment here. And this is a liberal state, from the top to the bottom, to the left to the right. And now we are being affected by conservative kook nut job MAGA morons. This guy could be the brother of that what's a jerk from New York. And I can't even believe, because I used to be from New York. That Santos guy. Here's another what do you call those guys? The election denier. And the whole thing was a fraud stuff. This is ridiculous. I hope he goes to jail for a long, long time. And any other conservative kook out there, if you want to come to New Mexico, come visit, spend your money, and keep going. Don't stay here. Now, that's all I want to say.
Fair enough. I mean, I'll say that I've always thought of the politics in New Mexico as being interesting. I mean, we've seen a lot of back and forth. I mean, we've had, a Republican, Democrat, even not at the time, but now libertarian former governors of the state of New Mexico. So I've always thought of the politics in New Mexico as pretty protean, even if the situation now is that, particularly with all of the governor's mansion, and then, of course, the congressional representation all marks blue in the category now. And there may not be a response to current situations or not, but I will say that if anyone's wanting to change that, this probably won't help. And very glad to see someone who has decided to do that about this, because again, it's not even just this guy was ticked off and deciding I'm gonna show all those guys, a crime of passion, so to speak, literally hiring people in order to help perpetuate this. So any of that goes, and this has been going on since early December. It's been a string of them. So it's definitely worth decrying and being very clear that is not even the realm of acceptability.
Well, I'll tell you what, they need to jack this guy up bigger than Jack of the Beanstalk and beat him up on his scully lid and make sure that he knows, and everybody else out there that's a conservative kook in this land of enchantment, we are not tolerating this stupidity. So you have a good day, all right?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one as well.
All right, you take care.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and tell you what, take that next break right now. Go back to more calls on the line here, and more of the comments coming in, including some very, very descriptive depictions of squirrels going on. Anyway, if you want to get on the comments, of course, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And again, that phone line, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The man accused of the deadly El Paso Walmart shooting will not face the death penalty in the federal case against him. That's according to the federal prosecutor's office for the Western District of Texas. It's been more than 3 years since the shooting took place, and Patrick Crucius has yet to stand trial at either the state or federal level. Now, this decision is not exactly a surprise, since the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland halted all federal executions 2 years ago. Crucius is still facing the death penalty at the state level, although it's not clear when the state trial is expected to begin. A crash of an overturned vehicle in south central El Paso was an alleged human smuggling attempt. That crash happened yesterday morning at 6:30 on Gateway East between Durazno and Rosa. Several vehicles were involved. According to officials, the vehicle had 9 migrants inside and it drove off the road and crashed. Texas DPS says the driver suffered minor injuries and that the driver was arrested and charged with human smuggling. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
El Paso police on the scene of a crash Gateway East at North Yarborough. That's slowing traffic. Gateway East and the I-10 are stop and go. The slowing starts before the Patriot all the way to Yarborough with 10-minute delays. Eastbound on the spur from the Gateway to the Loop, it's a 23-minute delay. Slow travel continues eastbound Montana Avenue, Hawkins to Zaragoza, 18-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery. We're going to dry things out for your Wednesday, but for tomorrow, as we get drier, it's also going to be windier and cooler. Highs only in the lower 50s, still about a 10% chance of a shower for our Wednesday. For your Thursday, the weather looking nicer, lighter winds by Thursday, high around 52, and we'll see breezy to windy conditions, but warmer temperatures for your Friday with a high around 60. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and my company is Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 to provide custom blinds, shades, and shutters at affordable prices. Our blinds are easy to install and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive professional. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Why do you buckle up when you get in your truck? Maybe you do it to get home safely to your loved ones, or because you take your job as a professional driver seriously, or because you want to follow the law to stay safe. Remember, it doesn't matter how long you've been driving, or even if it's a quick trip. Wear your seatbelt to stay safe on the road. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. That's www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. And remember to buckle up when you get behind the wheel. Paid for by FMCSA.
Is your tub worn out, but you're not sure who to trust to replace it? With over 2 million successful bath remodels, people trust Bathfitter because we know how to do it right. We've been custom designing and manufacturing baths for over 35 years. Our unique tub-over-tub installation takes as little as a day with no demo to fit your busy schedule. And we offer a lifetime warranty on every tub. That's how confident we are in our quality and durability. Bathfitter, it just fits. Visit bathfitter.com to book your free consultation.
Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations. This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to chime in on the show, particularly at this point during the program, when we do have, among other things, the phone lines open. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And also got a lot of comments coming in over on the various socials, including Ed Clore, RJ Fluffy Menace, Marky Mendingo, saying that he loves this show. I mean, I'm fond of it as well. It's one of the reasons I'm here and we keep doing this here is because I have a great time, regardless of what of those this is going on here. And some very interesting descriptions of, say, I popped them up during the conversation here, but Matt Olson and Eric von Holstein-Rathwell going on about the enchanted nature of squirrels here. Eric saying even the squirrels in New Mexico are enchanted, and magic acorns with some additional things about how they may grow out cow patties. Anyway, a lot of other important things, and I'm not saying these are unimportant, but a lot more specific things being brought up here, including RJ responding to the case that Frankie did bring up here, and we had a chance to yet of the Solomon Pena situation, saying Solomon Pena paying hitmen to shoot up the competition is crazy, but some idiot judge allowed him to run for office after 7 years in prison. What is New Mexico thinking? I mean, there are ways that you can run or even be emancipated from it. Okay, I'll admit I'm not as up on Florida. I mean, it's not Florida. I've known someone from Florida who managed to get their rights reinstated there, but on New Mexico, not as up on their laws in that way or the prohibitions therein. So hadn't had much cause to before this moment here. So if I can find anything specific on that, I'll be sure to bring it up there. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get back to the phone lines here right now. Again, that number to call 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I was very sorry to hear about Greg Allen's passing.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I know or heard, he didn't have any sickness or anything like that, and it's all of a sudden, and I'm very sorry for him, and my prayers go out to him and his family. The other thing is, I'd like to talk about this obesity issue that you raised.
Sure.
One simple way that we had in our high school about for doing away with obesity, at least trying to, contain it, reduce it. Poor choice of words.
Fair enough.
Our high school, back in 1960, we had tables that did not have chairs, and people had to stand up. The tables were a bit taller, so you could stand up, have your meal, and when that was over with, there's no time for lollygagging and joking around with your buddies. You go out into the schoolyard and play basketball or whatever you want to do, and it worked. And we didn't have too many fat people in my high school, I can tell you that. The last thing I'd like to point out is that I'm begging for one more time that your show be extended one more hour. And that is because we know, I know that what Mark Levin is going to talk about, I agree with a lot of his stuff, but it's predictable. Your show, on the other hand, is not predictable. We know.
Yeah.
When you have callers on your show, we know it's going to be something different every day, and it's so much fun to listen to this because you can't say what's going to happen, really. And the other thing is Stephanie Seyfert is excellent. I hope she's going to be on tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. She always brings up interesting topics and investigates them very thoroughly. So again, I'm begging the powers that be and anyone else in your audience who can get in touch with these powers that be to increase your show 1 hour. You need it. I mean, we need it. And that's all I got to say. Thank you, Andrew.
No, well, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
I mean, okay, there's back end things. I mean, we're always looking to improve, change, you make better things on the show here. So change for the better. Let me put it to you that way here, not just arbitrary change. Like, change 3 things and it's better now. No, we want to do better and make this more useful to the community, basically, because that's the idea here. Joey Carlson kind of seconding, saying he wants us to go national. Okay, that is way the hell out of my hands, I'll put it that way, but we want to do the best job that we can to talk about the local issues as much as we can, and I will fully agree with the idea of predictability because, I mean, even coming into the show today, I mean, there's things that I put together. We have stories that we plan to talk about, and then sometimes I just I don't actually usually have a printed script, but you rip it in half, throw it away because we're doing plenty of other things and other stories come up here. So I appreciate the concept there. And again, I appreciate it. Try to take both the criticism and praise, I guess, maybe that way, or the very least encouragement in due course about what we can get to here, including some other tempering being brought up there. And Matt Olson, always one kerfuffle after another on this show here. But I mean, I'm enjoying it. I don't know about y'all, but I'm having a great time. But let's get to at least one more call on the line here before we hit that next break and get towards the end of the program. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I agree with that previous caller wholeheartedly. Yeah, we don't need more and more right-wing rhetoric like you have all morning and all afternoon on that station in a predominantly Democratic city. I've always liked Albuquerque and New Mexico, and I wish El Paso had become part of New Mexico. We'd be so much better off. And like El Paso, as you know, Albuquerque has the Hispanic culture, a mountain in the middle of town, the Rio Grande Valley, a university in town, but it's very close to the beautiful Santa Fe and the Santa Fe National Forest.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought that if I wanted to move nearby to a greener place, Albuquerque would be a strong contender. Now, the sad national news from Albuquerque is that a former Republican candidate for the New Mexico House of Representatives, Solomon Peña, was arrested for allegedly conspiring with and paying 4 other men to shoot the homes of 2 Democratic county commissioners and 2 Democratic state legislators, with bullets penetrating the walls of the house of one of these people with a 10-year-old girl in it. I mean, it's horrible. And this right wing, the alleged suspect is, again, his name is Solomon Peña. He's just another one of those pendejo Mexican-American Tío Taco Trumpers. This right-wing radical wears MAGA gear, and it is well known as an election denier, having run and lost office and alleging that the election was stolen from him when he lost by a huge margin. Now, this is what Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller said in a statement. This type of radicalism is a threat to our nation and has made its way to our doorstep right here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This radical right-wing madness previously victimized El Paso with the Trump terrorist Walmart killings. Now, in Seattle, there's a man who sent angry emails to Representative Pamela J. Paul, repeatedly showing up outside her house, armed with a semi-automatic handgun and shouting threats and profanities. And in Queens, a man who had traveled across the country waited in a cafe across the street from Representative Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez's office to confront her, part of a near-constant stream of threats and harassment that has prompted the Congresswoman to switch her sleeping locations at times and to seek protection from a 24-hour security detail. Now this is a statement from Congresswoman Collins, Republican, who's serving her 5th term. She says, "I wouldn't be surprised if a senator or House member were killed." Now, this is the mindset of the pawns, of the morons that Trump used to attack the Capitol. Death threats, mostly against Democratic Congress people, have doubled since Trump and his right-wing media propaganda started attacking and targeting them, like the Squad and AOC. Now, about MLK, as you know, the other day was a national holiday for him. If he was alive today, he would be sad over what he'd be reading about this. He spoke against racial discrimination, excessive materialism, and militarism. And he was against the Vietnam War and poverty. And it's systemic racism, plutocrats, and Republican supply-side trickle-down neoliberal economics have resulted in the net worth of the typical white family being nearly 10 times greater than that of a black family. The net worth of the typical white family in 2016 was $171,000, while that of a black family was $17,150. Now, the right would consider it woke for me to point out that the gaps in wealth between black and white households reveal the effects of accumulated inequality and discrimination, as well as differences in power and opportunity that can be traced back to the nation's inception. That black wealth gap reflects a society that has not and does not afford equal opportunity to all its citizens. So with that said, Andrew, who do you believe? Do you believe that the election was stolen from Trump?
Okay, if we're getting back into that big question here, to address what you did bring up otherwise with the part of it here, I mean, I think the election is self-apparent, frankly. And if anyone is thinking that, well, we need to go back and change anything, like, frankly, no, that's not going to happen. and anyone really pushing for that here. I mean, I think that the major question you need to look at is if someone was saying that this was done and this did happen in that way, what actions are they taking about it here? The fact of the matter is that it was used as a fundraising line. And if you ever really came to shove for most of the people talking about this, at least those office holders, they'd be like, and that's why you need to donate here. I mean, truly, if it were, the fact of the matter is that you believe that something so egregiously bad happened that, anything is on the table and they're just asking for your money. Let's just say the results don't fit up with the intention that they're putting behind it. But to the point of actually, I mean, anyone who says that there is no political solution, so to speak, that any only direct action, to take a more activist phrase about it than how, assuming this guy may end up arguing this in court, to say that that is acceptable would be false, because it is not. If you're not going to take your issues to the voters and have them decide it, besides through force of arms, you're going to see political change. The short answer for that is that that's getting pretty close to the actual definition of terrorism, saying that by taking action, you're going to force, political, social, etc., other change here. And hold on, if this guy ends up getting charged with it, I mean, this arrest has just happened. We'll see. But yeah, to call this unacceptable would be an understatement, frankly. I got to say there. But I mean, as much as there is, I mean, there are racial inequalities that have existed in this country. In fact, I mean, even beyond the idea of some of those, big ideas about, segregation, Jim Crow, slavery, there was actually, or it came across a little bit earlier this month here, looking at the AP reporting on it, about the Justice Department accusing LA-based City National Bank of discrimination, effectively redlining, and ordering them to pay about $31 million because of that. And if you're unfamiliar with the phrase, redlining was essentially where on a map they would outline in a red line, traditionally back in the kind of analog days, and the phrase has gone forth since there, of what areas would and would not be able to essentially qualify for loans, mortgages, other financial tools and accessibility, etc. And those ended up being largely under, racial lines. I mean, okay, I grew up knowing the phrase, there goes the neighborhood, and it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized the kind of really messed up history behind that phrase. So to say that if people make their individual choices and they don't come out to good outcomes, that is one thing. But when you start looking at systematic aspects of it, yeah, that is something that cannot be tolerated, cannot be allowed to continue, and does need to be actively addressed. So whenever you find remnants of it, or remnants of older systems, or even things that are changing, there have been other court cases or other filings that have been made against those of, say, I think in this particular case it was also about whether they're even offering, having branches, where they're placing them here. I mean, sure, there's a certain amount of legitimate business interest that needs to drive decisions here. And you get too much in the way of that, you start meddling too much with it, it becomes a problem. But whenever you look at, again, programmatic, systematic ways of, because we don't like certain people or certain areas, we can't do that. Yeah, that's racism, and that is unacceptable in any time, but particularly in this day and age here. So, that being said, focusing on this, I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is an important one to remember, both on his efforts, both on the service that he put forth there, and what that means to this country going forth. It was an interesting thing, special out on the day in question here yesterday, on kind of his own history, and part of it here, because even at the point in time, I mean, it's worth noting that Dr. King was assassinated because he wasn't even necessarily that popular in large swaths of the population, even in his own time, as much as it has been not exactly sanitized, but in a way kind of controlled and put forth. I mean, some of his more radical statements out there would probably still ruffle some feathers today, but those aren't the ones that are often most talked about, because he was focused on a lot of different issues beyond even just the, I have a dream speech that everyone has heard, and probably needs to listen to a little bit closer there. But I mean, thank you for the point in the call. Important issues to bring up there. But I'll tell you, we got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll tell you what we got coming up for you on the show, what's scheduled for y'all, and what we'll be talking about next. So let's go ahead and take that break. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
I-10 westbound at Reynolds, an accident is off to the right involving multiple vehicles. Expect some delays. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, an accident just reported. A crash with injuries eastbound on Executive Center Boulevard at North Mesa Street. Stop and go on the spur between the Gateway and the Loop. It's a 25-minute delay. And slow on Montana Avenue eastbound Hawkins to Zaragoza, 22-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Commercial Insurance can protect your small business with over 30 coverage options, an easy-to-use mobile app, personalized discounts, and more. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the CPAP Games live from the Hayes bedroom. It's another eventful night, Bruce.
It sure is, Ron. Steve has been struggling with his CPAP.
His wife, Michelle, is trying to contain her rage.
Michelle throws an elbow.
She's leaving for the couch.
Steve should get Inspire.
Absolutely, Bruce. Inspire is a sleep apnea treatment that gives you comfortable, restful sleep with the click of a remote. There's no mask and no hose. Just sleep.
Learn more at InspireSleep.com.
Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you and review important safety information at InspireSleep.com.
Hey, Texas. There are approximately 950,000 individuals in Texas living with a serious mental illness, which is an individual risk factor for severe COVID-19. If you or someone you know is living with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia, major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, make sure they know where to go this holiday season to stay safe and healthy. Visit covidvaccine.texas.gov to find resources and location information for vaccine providers near you. Stay healthy, Texas.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out heart-stopping letters, aggressively garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. Don't let the tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, the #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks that the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands. Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, they'll fight to get you the best deal possible. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-627-7754. 800-627-7754. 800-627-7754.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. That's going to just about do it for us for today, but want to tell you about a couple things we're working on for you here. Of course, in the midst of all of this, there was the re-inauguration of Texas Governor Greg Abbott going on today, him putting forth some more of the priorities for the Texas legislative session. We'll certainly be getting more into that. Also, of course, some of those other major things affecting us here in the borderland, and those conversations, as was kind of asked about with our news partners over at KFOX 14 and Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with the same here. So that'll be coming up for you tomorrow specifically, and then more of these conversations about all the other things that affect us here in the borderlands here. So that's going to do it for us for today. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. I think it was a pretty good discussion overall, even if we ended up doing some unexpected things, but that's, as was also put, pretty well par for the course. So we'll do it again tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday. Okay, outside of the few holidays that we got here, 4 to 6 p.m. as we do on those days. So in the meantime, until then, I want to ask you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when you're out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Reynolds, an accident is off to the right involving multiple vehicles. Expect some delays. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, an accident just reported. A crash with injuries eastbound on Executive Center Boulevard at North Mesa Street. Stop and go on the spur between the Gateway and the Loop. It's a 25-minute delay. And slow on Montana Avenue eastbound Hawkins to Zaragoza, 22-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you, El Paso and surrounding areas, for helping us be El Paso's #1 volume dealer in in new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram sales in 2022. Our goal is to ensure that everyone gets the best deals and exceptional trade-in offers so we can be number one again in 2023.
Trade in and trade up for less during the Start Something New sales event at Sun Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. For a limited time, get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months on new 2022 Ram trucks. Super low 1.9% APR on 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees and get $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, we have a huge selection of new Dodge Chargers and certified pre-owned vehicles with the best prices in town. Worried about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. Trade in and trade up for less at Sunlight Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunlight Park Drive or online at sunlightparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're fighting against childhood cancer every day. At the heart of this battle are our donors.
Most of us want to make some type of difference in the lives of others. St. Jude does miraculous work.
The fact